Sometimes people ask me, Ellen, do I need an ABLE account for my child or do I need a special needs trust? And my response to them is usually, yes, you need both. In this video, I'm going to talk about the similarities and the differences of ABLE accounts and special needs trusts so you can understand when you should use them, why you should use them, and how they work together. Okay, so first let's talk about a special needs trust. And just to let you know, I have actually done a deep dive video about special needs trusts. It's called How to Set Up a Special Needs Trust in California. So I encourage you watch that, but I'm going to go over just a few really important things. So the type of special needs trust we're really thinking of is a third-party special needs trust. This is one that you set up for your child, and your child's inheritance goes in there, usually when you die. But they can also receive inheritances from other family members as well. And that money is not counted towards their public benefits. It's basically invisible for public benefits purposes. So if your child is receiving SSI or in California Medi-Cal, then it doesn't count as a resource, it doesn't count as income, and your child can continue to receive those benefits and have a large amount of money in a special needs trust. So it's a great safety net for our children. Now, let's compare that to an ABLE account. So an ABLE account is really a savings account for a child with disabilities. It's modeled after the 529 plan. It's called a 529A plan. Oh, and by the way, I have 2 videos on ABLE accounts that I think you might enjoy. So, if you want to do a deeper dive, you can go there. So ABLE accounts are intended to hold smaller amounts of money. You can put up to the annual exclusion amount into the ABLE account. And what is that? That's the amount that you can give to as many people as you want that year. And this year it's $17,000, okay? And you don't have to report it to the IRS. You don't have to file income taxes. It's the annual exclusion for gift tax purposes. So you can put up to $17,000 into an ABLE account per year. Now, does this mean that Grandma can put $17,000 in and Uncle can put $17,000 in and I can put $17,000? No, it's capped out at $17,000. So you can see that the ABLE account is not intended to receive inheritances. So I've received questions like, well, Ellen, I'll just set up an ABLE account to receive the inheritance from me to my child. Hopefully you can leave more than $17,000 to your special needs child, and that can't go into the ABLE account. So if you have a small amount, $10,000, then that can go into the ABLE account, but not a larger amount. Now, another interesting thing about an ABLE account is that it can be funded by anybody, including the disabled beneficiary themselves. So if they're earning money or if they've received money themselves, they can put it, again, up to $17,000 into their ABLE account. The type of special needs trust I'm talking about here is a third-party special needs trust, and that cannot receive the disabled person's own money. Okay, so you can't put their own money into a third-party special needs trust. So I have a handy-dandy comparison chart that I wanted to go over with you so you can kind of see how they're similar and how they're different. So here's my first chart. You can see an ABLE account can be set up for somebody who became disabled before age 26. Now, I do want to mention that number is scheduled to go up to age 46 in 2026, which is really nice. A third-party special needs trust, that's anybody with a disability. It doesn't matter when the disability age of onset took place. All right, who can fund? We talked about that an ABLE account can be funded by anybody, including the beneficiary, but a third-party special needs trust can be funded by anybody but the beneficiary. All right, if the beneficiary has their own money, you need to set up a first-party special needs trust. And I actually did a video on first-party special needs trusts called How Can I Receive an Inheritance While on Public Benefits? Okay, so how many ABLE accounts can you set up for somebody? Because you might want to be clever and say, hey, I know, I'll set up a California ABLE account for my son and an ABLE account in Tennessee and one in Ohio. No, you only get to set up one ABLE account per child, period. All right. However, a third-party special needs trust, you can have a lot of different ones. I know some families where there's 2 or 3 third-party special needs trusts. Maybe the parents are divorced and they each want to set up their own third-party special needs trust. So those, you can have more than one. All right, now who can control the ABLE account? This is a really important distinction between ABLE accounts and special needs trusts. For ABLE accounts, the beneficiary can control the ABLE account if it's set up that way. If the disabled person has the capacity that they need, they can manage their own ABLE account. Or you can set up somebody else. The parent can be the rep payee, the sibling can be, you can find another family member or friend. But for a special needs trust, anyone can be the trustee, can manage the trust, except for the beneficiary and the beneficiary's spouse, by the way, if they're married. Okay, now in California, what happens when the beneficiary dies? Well, happily, nothing goes to Medi-Cal as a reimbursement claim in an ABLE account or in a third-party special needs trust. With first-party special needs trusts, Medi-Cal does get to bring a reimbursement claim, and for ABLE accounts in many other states, their Medicaid system will bring a reimbursement claim. Now, I do want to add something really special that changed in 2023. If you're in California, haven't set one up before January 1st, 2023, and you're going to set one up, then you have to set up a Cal ABLE account. Otherwise, Medi-Cal will bring a reimbursement claim. Okay, more compare and contrast. Let's take a look. An ABLE account, as I mentioned, can only receive up to $17,000 per year. You can also add about $13,000 of the beneficiary's own earned income if the beneficiary is working and not contributing to their own retirement account, their employer's retirement account. Third-party special needs trust, it can receive $1 million, $5 million, $10 million, and both tools are not counted as countable assets for public benefits purposes. Now, what about making gifts? I have a great slide on that, and so I'm going to do that in just a second. I'm going to talk about how to make gifts to ABLE accounts and third-party special needs trusts. Okay, is there a cap on how much you can put in? Well, for an ABLE account, if the child is receiving SSI, they can only get up to $100,000 in the ABLE account, and after that, SSI is suspended. For special needs trust, they can continue to receive it indefinitely. What about income taxes? Well, for an ABLE account, it's growing and growing, income tax free. And if you withdraw the money for qualified disability expenses, you don't have to pay the increase, which is really great. A third-party special needs trust is actually taxed at the non-grantor rate, and the tax brackets are compressed, so it gets to the highest rate at a quicker rate. All right, so what kind of distributions can be made from a special needs trust or from an ABLE account? For an ABLE account, you can pay for qualified disability expenses, which is really a lot of things. Anything that the child needs for their life and really for their happiness. And then a third-party special needs trust is even broader. It can pay for really just about anything, but both of them are very broad. There aren't a lot of restrictions.
Hey everyone, if you like my mom's video, like and subscribe.
So I promised to talk about gifts to special needs trusts. Let's talk about that. So with a third-party special needs trust, if you make a gift to the special needs trust, it is not considered what we call a completed gift. A completed gift is where I make a gift to you, you take it and you say thank you, and you can go spend it. Because a third-party special needs trust cannot be managed by the beneficiary, it's not considered a completed gift when you make a gift to it. And so you have to report any gift, no matter how small, to the IRS, and you have to file a 709 gift tax return, which is really a pain. And that eats away dollar for dollar at your estate tax exemption. So a lot of people don't want to do that. So that's where ABLE accounts can be super helpful. You can actually make a gift to an ABLE account up to $17,000, as I have in my little chart, and it's considered a completed gift because it's a gift directly to the child. Now, even if the child isn't managing the ABLE account, even if somebody else is managing it, it's still a completed gift. You don't have to report it to the IRS. You don't have to file a 709 form. It doesn't eat away dollar for dollar. So if you have a very generous grandma or auntie who wants to give, let's say, $1,000 gifts or $10,000 gifts to each of the grandkids, but then they go, no, don't make a gift to Joey. That could interfere with his public benefits. Well, this is a way you can actually make a gift to Joey or to his ABLE account and not interfere with public benefits. Okay, one other thing I want to talk about in a difference between ABLE accounts and special needs trusts. So this involves SSI, Supplemental Security Income. So you'll see over here, we have our third-party special needs trust. Let's say that parents died. The third-party special needs trust is funded, and now that trust is being used to pay for food and housing, which is fine, right? The problem is it actually reduces the recipient's SSI check by about 1/3 of the federal benefit rate, which is, let's say, $250 or $300 per month. And so that's money that the beneficiary is not receiving. We call that an ISM deduction, in-kind support and maintenance deduction. It's kind of a bummer. Here's how you get around it. Super cool, all right? What the special needs trust can do, or anybody can do really. I mean, even in this diagram where I say a third-party special needs trust, that can also be a parent paying for food and housing for the child, all right? So now let's look at a third-party special needs trust or a parent or somebody else paying the ABLE account. So they transfer money directly into the ABLE account, and then the ABLE account plus any SSI money for the child is used to pay for food and housing. And guess what? There's no ISM deduction. Isn't that amazing? So this is a way that a special needs trust can interact with an ABLE account and not get the ISM deduction. Super cool. So I usually put language in my trust that says that a special needs trust can distribute to an ABLE account. Not everybody does that, but I believe it's still allowed in California. You can still make distributions unless it's prohibited in the special needs trust. You can still make distributions from a special needs trust to an ABLE account. So this is something really to think about and see who's involved. How do we maximize the child's public benefits, the ABLE account, and the special needs trust? So these are two tools that we use in different ways for the benefit of our children. So the last thing to think about is who should be setting up your special needs trust and who should set up an ABLE account? Well, for a special needs trust, that definitely needs an expert. You should hire a special needs planner, an estate planning attorney who specializes in special needs planning, and they can help draft and execute your special needs trust when it's time. For an ABLE account, though, you can go online to calable.ca.gov and you can set up your own Cal ABLE account. They walk you through it. You don't need an attorney to help out. You can do it yourself, which is great for all those DIYers out there. So I hope you enjoyed that video. If you'd like to learn more about SSI, Supplemental Security Income, which I discussed a bit on this video, please take a look here and I'll see you over there.
Hello everyone! If you liked my mom's video, don't forget to like and subscribe. See you all next time!